Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us this afternoon for our presentation. My apologies for our slight delay in starting, but we are ready to go at this point in time. So just a couple housekeeping items as usual before we get started. I'd just like to remind people that we are open, we are still working remotely. So please, should you need our services or have a client who needs our support, please direct them our way. We are available. Also, just like to say a quick thank you for the healthcare professionals that joined us this afternoon. We appreciate that you're in a very strained position in lots of your regions, and we really appreciate you taking the time out to join us this afternoon. So thank you. We have one more webinar coming up, my apologies. We have another webinar coming up in January of 2022 that is directed towards healthcare professionals. It is also on demystifying neuropsychology. We're just looking to nail down a date for that, so please keep your eye out on your email for future invitations to those webinars. Just a quick reminder, we are recording and it will be available after this on our Asante Cafe. Please feel free to use the Q&A section, as you can submit anonymous questions for our presenter this afternoon. If you're more comfortable, please feel free to use the chat as well. As well as always, we do have a survey at the end of this. We would really appreciate if people could take 2 to 3 minutes out of their afternoon and fill it out for us. It does help us develop and plan for future webinars for healthcare professionals. So we would really appreciate if you could take the time out of your day to fill that out for us. That'll be in the chat section towards the end of the presentation, the link, as well as it's emailed out in your thank you emails. And so now I would like to present our speaker for the afternoon. Dr. Sienna Kaspar is an associate professor at the University of Lethbridge in the Faculty of Health Sciences Therapeutic Recreation Program. Her areas of research include organizational behavior, empowerment, interprofessional teamwork and collaboration, quality of care, and quality of work of life in dementia care. Dr. Kaspar is a certified therapeutic recreation specialist and a dementia care specialist. She has worked as a clinician and a consultant in long-term care facilities in both Canada and the United States for over 20 years now. And with that being said, I see that she has shared her screen and is ready to go. So thank you very much for coming out this afternoon and presenting for us.
Sorry, I'm also figuring out how to make sure, if people would like to be able to see me, to turn on my video. It is absolutely my pleasure to be here. And I just want to thank you very much for inviting me to speak to this group of people about this topic, because it is near and dear to me. So I was asked to talk about resilience in the face of a pandemic, and to really offer some practical strategies for the health and well-being of, I would say, not just caregivers, but also care recipients. My focus, though, is on caregivers in this, but I think that there are strategies that I'm going to be talking about that can be used and effective for anyone, in fact. So in order to begin on this journey, we have to first answer the question, what is resilience? So resilience is the ability to recover from setbacks, adapt well to change, and keep going in the face of adversity. And oh my, have we ever had to be resilient in the last year and a half, 2 years that we have faced, and what we've been navigating, and then what we are continuing to navigate. So I just want to honor right now that if you're on this call, you are resilient. So and to appreciate that in yourself. However, we also know that the pandemic has absolutely increased the risk of burnout and decreased our resilience. And that's just because of, again, all of those ongoing changes that we've had to navigate and the additional stress. And according to the research or information out there, there are basically 3 components to burnout. One of them is emotional exhaustion, which is the fatigue that comes from caring too much for too long. Another is the decreased sense of accomplishment. And this is described as an unconquerable sense of futility, feeling that nothing you do makes any difference. And the final component of burnout is depersonalization, which is the depletion of empathy, caring, and compassion. So these are pretty big outcomes and big risks. And so it's one of the reasons why we need to make sure that we are resilient against burnout in our roles. And when we explore burnout, we learn that emotional exhaustion is most strongly linked to the negative impacts of our health, our relationships, and our work, and especially for women. So it's emotional exhaustion that I'm going to be focusing on today. So if we're going to explore emotional exhaustion, we need to learn, turn towards our emotions. But first, we need to answer this question of what is an emotion? And this was done best, in my opinion, by Nagoski and Nagoski in their book, Burnout, The Secret to Unlocking the Stress Cycle. So when they asked, what is an emotion? Their answer was, emotions involve the release of neurochemicals in the brain in response to a stimulus. And usually that stimulus is a stressor. Emotions are automatic and instantaneous and pervasive, and emotions result in whole body reactions. So this is often referred to as the stress response. And I know you've heard of this, or I'm assuming you've heard of this, the fight, flight, or freeze response. The next question, though, that Nagoski and Nagoski asked in their book was, how do you exhaust an emotion? That's if we're emotionally exhausted, first, what is an emotion? And then how do you exhaust an emotion? And their answer was, emotions are like tunnels. If you go all the way through them, you get to the light at the end. But exhaustion happens when we get stuck in an emotion. And so their book was really focused on how do you make sure you don't get stuck in an emotion. And some of the biggest factors or incidents in our life that actually produce these emotional responses and emotions are stress and stressors. And in their book, they also helped us unpack or really understand more the difference between stress and stressors. So stressors are the stimuli that occur outside of your body and are often outside of your control. Stress, however, is what happens physically and emotionally inside your body in response to the stressors. So stress can be referred as the stress response to stressors, which are outside. So one of the things that they helped us really understand in their book is that removing stressors does not mean that the stress response is removed from your body. And to help that kind of land or make sense, I just want you to think about a time when, or an incident that has caused you, and think about even though you might have that stressor was removed from you, your physical reaction to it wasn't necessarily removed as well. So if you think about a really intense day at work, or a big fight with a loved one, or a major deadline, once you have finished that day of work, it's not like as soon as you leave, you press the off button on your computer. I was going to say leave the office. Most of us are working out of our own homes, but as soon as that day is over, it doesn't mean that your body immediately goes, okay, everything's fine now. Your body is still processing all of the emotional response to the stressors that you have just been engaging in. Another example is having like a near miss when you were driving. You can have this full-on physiological stress response. The near miss is over, but it can take hours for that to be actually moved through your body, if you will. And another important to acknowledge when we're looking at stressors is that they will always be a part of our life. Unfortunately, we also often presume that if we just make it through this project, or we just make it through this time, or this pandemic, or we just make it through this stage, or this particular illness, then all of our stressors will go away. And the reality is that life keeps on throwing stressors at us. So to live well and to be well is, in fact, not to attempt to live without stress, because that's impossible. But instead, it's to help us figure out how to not get stuck in that stress, to recognize that we're always going to have stress. And some people feel like this, you're taking away my hope. But in fact, if you are hoping to live better and be more healthy, once there's no more stress, that's an unrealistic hope. And it's much better to focus on, how do I navigate this stress that I'm living with right now to ensure that my best option for health and wellness and well-being. So according to the authors of that fabulous book, in order for you to not be stuck in stress, you must ensure that you actually complete the stress cycle. Your health and wellness depends upon it. And to complete the stress cycle is actually to turn towards difficult feelings with kindness and compassion, as opposed to kind of our instinct, which is to stuff it, or to perhaps numb ourselves from feeling that. I know for me, before I started exploring this in as much detail as I have recently, I would want to numb with food, maybe chocolate, maybe a glass of wine, just to ease, to not feel the intensity of those emotions or that stress as much. And that is, in fact, a way of turning away instead of turning towards the emotions. So Nagoski and Nagoski tell us that to complete the stress cycle, there are activities that we can engage in that really signal to our body that we are safe again. And this is a list of 7, and I think that they are exceptional. And as I'm going through them, what I want to do is encourage you to pick 1 or 2 or 3, or maybe even more, that you want to make a commitment to engaging in to help yourself make sure that you complete the stress cycle. So the first is physical activity. And what they say is that any movement of your body counts. This can be stretching, dancing, walking, running, kickboxing, whatever, but moving your body to move the stress out of it, and move all of that physiological response to the stress out of your body, because it can get stuck in it. And we know that stress is one of the biggest risk factors for many, many chronic illnesses. So moving it through is an important, and whatever it is that actually, I would encourage movement that brings you joy or pleasure as well. The second is breathing. And this is a really powerful activity that you can use to signal to your body that you are safe, because it's available to you anytime, any place. And it sounds too easy, but there is lots of evidence that, in fact, if you will engage in some breathing exercises, you can truly alter how your body feels. And it's one of the most effective ways to counter the negative outcomes of stress within your body physically. So right now, I hope you're all comfortable. Hopefully, maybe the Zoom format produces some sense of security in engaging in activity, but I want to teach you one of the best breathing activities to help your body counter the stress, fight or flight syndrome, and also complete the stress cycle. So we're going to do it right now. First of all, what I'd like you to do is just check in with your body right now, see how it feels. I know for me, I was the one that was having the technical difficulties, so I can feel the stress in my body right now from that. And I'm just checking in with how my body feels right here, right now, in this moment. And now what I'd like you to do, after just noting that, is I want you to breathe in through your mouth, starting with a deep belly. So you're breathing in by through your belly, and then up through your chest, and then through the back of your throat. And then you're going to exhale through a straw. And in your exhale, you're going to take twice as long in your exhale as in your inhale. So we're going to do that together. Trust me, I know some people will think I'll just watch and not do it, but I really want to encourage you to try this out. And we're going to repeat this breath 3 times. So we're going to start in through the belly. And I think I might have misinformed you. Your in-breath is actually through your nose. And so my apologies for that. Here we go. We're going to do number 2. Filling all the way up and then out through your mouth as if through a straw. And one last time, remember, in through your belly, up into your chest, into the back of your throat, and then exhale through a straw, as if through a straw out of your mouth. All right, I feel better. So I'd like you now to just check in with your body. Do you feel different? That activity took maybe a minute and a half, maybe less, and I was talking through it. This is something that you can do anytime, any place, in the middle even of a stressful event, to help to signal to your body that you are safe. The third activity that they noted was positive social connections. And this is really, it's just so important. It's about staying connected to people who bring you joy. If you're human, there's likely going to be people in your life who do not bring you joy, but despite that, you still need to remain connected to them. And we acknowledge that, and they can increase our stress, in fact, for a variety of reasons. And so what this is about is positive social connections. This is making that time and prioritizing, really staying connected to people who bring you joy, who are truly positive social connections for you. Sometimes, I know for me, I can get so caught up in the busyness and the tasks and all the things that I need to do, and that really taking the time to stay connected, especially right now, because of how disconnected we often feel. It takes extra effort, extra time, and it can be even more complicated, that you can lose your social connections with people who truly bring you joy. So what they're saying is, make this a priority. Your health and well-being actually dependent upon it. Another is, number 4 is laughter. And this is true belly laughter. This isn't just, this is like things that really make you laugh. So I know some people feel really like guilty. A guilty pleasure is looking at, silly cat videos on the internet, or watching rom-coms or romantic comedies, or GIFs or something like that. And really, if they make you laugh, like truly laugh, that's actually a really good response to managing your stress, because it produces counter activities within your body. You get good neurochemicals released. It boosts your immune system to engage in laughter. So prioritizing that and knowing that when you do, you're actually helping yourself it is enjoyable, but it's more than that. So engaging in laughter and finding things that truly make you laugh, and spending time doing those things or watching those things that help you do that. Affection. This is the power of the 20-second hug. And this is really, if you have never had the opportunity to actually have a 20-second hug, I encourage you to do that. When I am having a really rough day, or when I've trying to navigate a presentation and my internet is going haywire, or whatever, like all of the things that can come up in my life. Also, I have a family member who has just been admitted into a secure dementia care unit, and navigating that transition for him, and just all the other things that life throws at me. One of the things that I've learned to do is to go to my husband and say, I need a hug. And he knows that it needs to be a 20-second hug. And we've learned that like there's research that actually tells us that that 20 seconds is about as long as, that's how long it takes in order to actually feel a relaxation response. And you actually have to time it, because you'll be surprised at how long 20 seconds is. And you'll feel when your body actually shifts into relaxation. And if you're offering a 20-second hug to someone who you care about, you'll feel their body go into the relaxation response. So don't underestimate the power of the 20-second hug. Number 6 is a good cry. But what they say in this is to not be focused on the emotions that are causing you to cry or resulting in you crying, because then that just stays in that just keeps that stress and emotional kind of like overload churning. But instead, if you are having a good cry, if the what you are experiencing is resulting in you crying, to really focus on the physical sensations of the cry rather than the story. Like to really go deeply into it and feel the tears on your face, to feel what's the physical sensation of what you're feeling in your chest, in your body, and to go into those emotions, to feel what the emotions physically feel like when you're crying within your body, and to really focus on them with compassion and to hold space for that. And then finally, creative expression. And this is putting heart into your art. If there's anything that you enjoy doing that is creative and releasing and tapping, by releasing your creative energies and tapping into your creative energies, prioritize that as well, because it can get you into a state of flow. It again is such a wonderful counter to the physiological responses that we have from stress. So once again, I guess the most important thing is you probably have all done all of these things, but you've never actually, or perhaps you haven't actually recognized how important they are to your health and well-being. And so to prioritize them when you are stressed, as opposed to maybe going into some habitual patterns of trying to numb your stress or to not feel what you are feeling. And I also think that a big part of how we can remain resilient is to grow our self-compassion. I think I've spoken on this before to this group, and but I just want to touch on it. So I don't know if the same people who are here today were part of that presentation. So I'm going to revisit it a little bit more briefly, but still I think it's worth bringing it up again. So what is self-compassion? Self-compassion involves being open to and aware of the reality that life is not easy. So it's about that again, acknowledging that we're never going to be without stress. We're never going to be without stressors. And to accept that, and then to hold space for ourselves with kindness, and to really be compassionate towards ourselves with how we are navigating that. So it's offering kindness and understanding towards oneself. It's really authentically desiring our own self's well-being. And it's taking a non-judgmental attitude towards our own inadequacies and failures, because we all have inadequacies and failures. And it's framing one's own experience in the light of the common human experience. So acknowledging that it's not just that our life isn't easy, but that every person that we know is also navigating a lot of stressors, a lot of stress. And that likely, if you think their life is easy, you probably just don't know them well enough. So if we're going to look at self-compassion, I now want to ask you, how self-compassionate are you? And to answer this question, I'm going to ask you a few more questions. So I want you to think about a time when a close friend felt that they had really messed up. They had blown it. They had made a huge mistake. And they were really frustrated with themselves, and they were beating themselves up. They were telling you what a huge mistake they had made. And I want to ask you, how did you respond to your friend or loved one in this situation? And I'm going to open up the chat box, and I'd like you to just share with in the chat box some of the things that you might have said to your friend or loved one when they had made a mistake like this. Just going to, if you're willing. It's okay, don't stress or worry. That's a lovely response. Are there any others? Compassion. Yeah, really offering them compassion. Wonderful. Some of the things that I've said are things like, everyone makes mistakes. You're human. This does not define you completely. We'll figure it out. Love that. Yes, we'll figure it out. Thank you. So now I want to ask you, next question. I want you now to think about a time when you messed up. You made a mistake. How do you typically respond to yourself in these situations? What were the things that you said? Should have known better. Remember, you're human. It's all part of the learning experience. I'm assuming that that was to go with the other. What was I thinking? How could this have happened? So stupid of me. Yeah. So isn't it interesting when we look at the differences between how we are responding to someone who we love and care about when they make a mistake, as compared to how we respond to ourselves when we make a mistake? So for me, when I make a mistake, my go-to is, what an idiot, Sienna. How could you have been so stupid? That was pathetic. I use pathetic. I use idiot. Sometimes I use words I would never say on a recorded Zoom video. But I can be truly cruel to myself. And when I've given this presentation, what I've heard is that the same is true of almost everyone who I'm speaking to. And yet I would never say those things to someone who I love and care about. So why is that? Why wouldn't we treat ourselves with the same love and compassion and kindness and support as we would treat someone else who we love and care about? Because the reality is, there's no one in this world who we should love and care about more than ourselves, because we know most about what we need to hear when we make a mistake. In fact, we know most about what the support is that we need. And yet all too often, maybe this is because we give love and compassion and caring to others, that we look outside of ourselves for that compassion. And we can get stuck in stresses and become less resilient when we continue to do that. Why can't we be as kind to ourselves and supportive to ourselves as we are to others? So what we know is that when we are self-compassionate to ourselves, that this is not only, it's obviously really good for our health and well-being. It's also just a good exercise in general, is to develop a relationship with that voice in our head that can be so darn cruel, and to counter it. But the research says actually that self-compassion outperforms self-esteem and even optimism as a predictor of resilience and coping. So in addition to being a recreation therapist, I'm also trained as a wellness coach. And what we know is that when you have an individual who is wanting to achieve a wellness goal around diet and exercise, which is such a common one that we see and have in our health and well-being goals, is around losing some weight or increasing our amount of physical activity. We know that, in fact, the level of self-compassion that individuals engage in is the strongest predictor of their success. And what we have believed and what we're trained to believe is that if we make a mistake, we need to be really hard on ourselves. We need to, come on, pull up your socks. We need to focus on not letting ourselves off the hook. But what we know is that if you can grow your self-compassion and you can be kinder to yourself as you are trying to achieve a goal, you're actually more successful. And an example of this is, for instance, I, like so many other people in this world, had the goal of losing that 10 pounds. And I had to be perfect. I felt like I had to be perfect in order to achieve this goal. And if I was ever not perfect, like I had the cookie, then I would beat myself up and I would say, oh, you're so pathetic, Sienna. You have absolutely no self-control. You always let yourself down, even though you've set this goal. And so you might as well eat every single cookie in the bag. And then tomorrow you can try to be perfect again. And instead, what we know is that if I eat the cookie, I engage in self-compassion, I can say, okay, you ate that cookie. I hope you really enjoyed it because it was yummy. But you know what? You're human. It's a cookie. It's life. And then focus on all the things that I actually did well that day. You did have a salad instead of French fries for lunch, and you took the stairs instead of the elevator, and you've made a lot of positive steps towards your goal. And then in that point, all I've done is eaten a cookie and not the whole bag, and I'm able to continue to move forward. So the same is true in any life goal that you have. When you have a setback, if you can actually focus with some self-compassion about the setback and focus on what you are doing well and how far you have come, you can continue to move forward. Another reason why self-compassion outperforms self-esteem is that self-esteem is so largely dependent upon external evaluations and opinions of us. So self-esteem is weak. It is very weak. It is so tenuous. All you have to do is think about all the individuals on Facebook, and if they don't get enough likes, it's like mortification. It's like needing that in order to feel okay with what you have posted. You kind of become addicted to it. But if you're instead focused on self-compassion, you are able to be, less influenced by what other people outside of you are evaluating you as. So that's how come it's so much a much better predictor of resilience and coping than self-esteem, because self-esteem is so dependent upon what other people's opinions are of you. Self-compassion has also been found to have a negative association with anxiety and a positive association with self-determination. And finally, contrary to what people might think, treating yourself kindly is also good for achieving your goals. And I've already talked about that before. So I hope that I've encouraged you all to understand and hopefully believe that self-compassion is worthy of your exploration and the cultivation of it more. So how do we cultivate it? Well, self-compassion and the idea of it was really brought to the forefront for all of us by Kristen Neff and her book, Self-Compassion, Stop Beating Yourself Up and Leave Insecurity Behind. And what she says is self-compassion is treating oneself with kindness, recognizing being a part of shared humanity, and being mindful when considering the negative aspects of oneself. So mindfulness is something that I'm sure we were hearing more and more and more about it, and there's a lot of good reasons for that. Because if we're going to grow self-compassion, we actually have to grow mindfulness, because that's about developing a relationship with that voice inside our head that can be so cruel and so hard on ourselves. The second component of cultivating self-compassion is self-kindness, and that's what I was just speaking about before. Do you treat yourself as well as you treat your friends and family? I do want to, and I do have time, speak very quickly about my own cultivation of self-kindness. And my first introduction to it actually came from my best friend, who 25 years ago, she's a physiotherapist, and she had chronic fatigue syndrome. And this was 25 years ago, when everyone was absolutely certain this was all in her head. And she was really hard on herself when she could barely get out of bed, and when she couldn't do and be the way that she felt like she should. And she could hear her voice being so critical to herself. And she told me one day that she finally stopped herself and said, what would Sienna say to me? I was her best friend. I was her cheerleader. I had so much compassion for her, and she would hear the words that I would say to her instead. And then she told me one day, she said, you know what? I realized I don't have to think about what you would say to me. Why can't I say those things to me? And it was this shift for her, that she could actually be as kind to herself as her best friend was to her. And that those words didn't have to come out of her best friend or her husband or her boss or anyone else. They could come from her, and she could be kind to herself. So she was the first person who actually taught me about developing and cultivating self-kindness. And then the final aspect of cultivating self-compassion is really a sense of shared common humanity. And we'll get into that in just a bit. But first, I do want to focus a little bit more on mindfulness. Mindfulness is the non-judgmental awareness of what is happening in the present moment. It's being right here, right now. And what's interesting is that if you've ever actually taken some time to watch your mind, you'll note that our minds really prefer to hang out in the future or in the past rather than right here, right now. Our minds want to plan and organize and try to exert some control over this crazy, wonderful thing called life by trying to plan enough in advance that we can feel more, I guess, safe or in control of what's coming our way. But we also really spend a lot of time rehashing and revisiting things that have already occurred. And that's where our mind likes to be, either in the future or in the past. But truly being present to right here, right now, is the only way that you can actually hear that voice in your head so that you can counter it with kindness. So mindfulness is about being aware of the voice inside your head. It's ensuring that you're not on automatic pilot. And here's why it can become so powerful for you, because it's really about being able to make a choice about what you think and how you respond to different situations. So to develop mindfulness, the best way to do this is actually to do meditation. And a lot of people think that meditation is actually about clearing your mind of all thought, but it's actually not that at all. Meditation is about trying to center your mind in the present moment so that you become aware of when your mind strays, and then you can make the choice to bring it back to the present moment. So I think we have the time. Let's go ahead and try this, because again, hopefully you're all in the privacy and comfort of your own either personal offices or in your own homes. So we're actually going to do just a 3-minute meditation. So what I want you to do is to choose a word or words that's going to be your anchor. It's going to help your mind stay right here, right now. And that word needs to be something, or the phrase needs to be something that elicits a calm reaction for you, not a charged reaction. So it could be here, it could be peace, it could be peaceful, it could be present, it could be relax. My word is ruah, which is an ancient Hebrew word for breath. I like the 2 syllables because I could do ru in my in breath and ah in my out breath. Whatever word or phrase works for you. And what you're going to do is you're just going to simply make the commitment to just say that word or repeat that word over and over in your mind. And for some of you who are visual, you'll see it in your mind's eye. For some of you who are more auditory, you'll hear it in your mind. And what you're going to notice, you're going to think 3 minutes, no problem, I can do that. But you're going to notice that within likely less than 1 minute, probably a couple of seconds, you'll be repeating the word. And then all of a sudden you'll notice that your mind is gone somewhere else. It is not on the word anymore. It is planning the next meeting, or thinking about the groceries, or thinking about something that your puppy did. I have a new puppy, so or thinking about a previous argument, or it's someplace else. And in the moment that you notice that it is someplace else, it's that noticing, you make the decision to bring your mind back to your word. That act of noticing and coming back to the word is the act of meditation. And that's what is the power there, because the more you bring it back, the stronger the meditation. So if you have to bring it back 27 times, that's a good meditation. And that activity is what enables you then, if your mind goes on a path of ruminating about something that's upset, or thinking about something that's an emotional roller coaster, you can actually have the choice to let go of those thoughts and come back, and then have a choice about how you're going to think and feel about this situation. That's the power of meditation. In addition, if you hear yourself calling yourself stupid or being such an idiot when you've made a mistake, you can actually decide to let go of those thoughts and come back and say, how can I be more kind? And so that's the power of this, is that it actually gives you choice about where your mind is going, instead of having a mind that is literally taking you on a ride, potentially to what will feel like off a cliff. So what I want you to do, we're going to just do a 3-minute meditation. I'd like you all to sit with your feet on the ground and your hands on your lap, perhaps hands up or palms up, or palms down, whatever is most comfortable for you. And I'd like you to all take in a deep breath. And just notice that you are in a body. Take in another deep breath. And notice when you're breathing, where you most feel the physical sensation of breathing. Is it through your nostrils? Is it in your chest filling up? Is it in your belly expanding? Where do you most physically feel the sensation of breathing? And now I want you to recognize again that you are in a body. And feel the physical sensations of this body. Feel the sensation of your clothes against your skin. And it may be helpful for you to close your eyes. If you're comfortable doing that, I encourage it. Feel the physical sensation of your backside against the chair, your feet on the floor, the sensation of your hands on your lap. And if, now that you're recognizing that you're in a body, there is a place in your body that has some pain or discomfort, just acknowledge that. Send that place or that part of your body some loving compassion, some kindness. And also send this body some gratitude. This body, we tend to be so judgmental of our bodies, but this body has been essential to your ability to enjoy life's greatest pleasures: a hug, a kiss, dancing, singing, holding the, going for a walk in the grass. Your body is what got you here today. So sending this body some gratitude. And now I want you to simply decide and make the intention to focus on your word or your phrase. And when your mind inevitably strays, just non-judgmentally let go of the thoughts that your mind was wandering towards and come back to your word. We're going to do this for just 2 minutes. So give yourself the gift of trying this out. Let it be so. Okay, wiggling your fingers, wiggling your toes. If you had your eyes closed, I encourage you to open up your eyes, maybe stretch. And now I'd just like you to notice, how does your body feel? And also note how your mind responded to that. That was just over 2 minutes. And I just want you to, with compassion and kindness, generate some awareness of where your mind likes to hang out and what it was like to bring it back to this present moment. Yes. I do have some books, and I'm going to thank you for that question. I will be bringing those up. Self-Compassion by Christian Neff, which was listed in that other slide deck. And my slide deck I did send it to Christine. Yeah, and mindfulness, some of the best are apps actually right now. There's a wonderful app called Calm that has some free versions, I'm sure, that I would recommend. Also, Headspace is another. So thank you for that question. Wait, I'll close this. Now, I am wondering what I would like to do, and I need to actually find out from our hosts, is it possible for everyone to be able to, if I were to stop sharing, for everyone to be able to turn on their videos, their cameras, all the participants?
Sorry, Dr. Caspar, we are running in webinar mode today, not meeting mode.
Oh, so
Yes.
they can't.
No, unfortunately,
Okay.
our two forms of communication are through the Q&A or the chat section.
The chat. Okay. I should have, when you said Zoom, I thought, oh, good, we'll be able to see each other. So I had another activity. Let me see. It works much better if we can all see each other. But I'd still like to see if I can figure out, we're going to try this. and you can just tell me if it's effective. So what I want you to do, I'm going to be reading a few sentences. This is, to me, I think it's the best exercise to really tap into this sense of shared common humanity. And so what I want you all to do is to think about, let's see, will this work? So I want you to think about either your workplace or your multiple friends, and also though visual, have some people that you can think about that are just simply like the store clerk at or the post office, the person who works at the post office that you go to, or a place that you frequent regularly, or a waitress or a waiter that was at the last restaurant that you went to. I want you to just have like a variety of different people that you can put forward in your mind. Okay, so yeah, we'll just try this because we can't look at each other. Okay, so pull up someone in your mind right now. To think this, I want you to visualize their face, and I want you to think, just visualize their face while I read this. Just like you, I was once a small child who had big dreams and hopes about my future. Now I want you to think of someone else, someone from your work, where you're currently working, or someone from your past. Just like you, I sometimes feel afraid. Now I want you to come up with someone who is a waitress or a waiter, or someone who you do not maybe know personally at all. Just like you, I get angry, hurt, and frustrated when someone lets me down. Now I want you to come up with someone who's a friend. Just like you, I wish life were just a little bit easier. Now I want you to come up with someone who was a supervisor or a boss. Just like you, I worry about what other people think. Now I want you to come up with a coworker or a colleague, current or past. Just like you, there are things I've done that I wish I could do over. Now I want you to come up with someone who is a friend. Visualize them. Just like you, I've been hurt by someone I loved. Now I want you to come up with a child or a niece or a nephew, or someone who is younger than you. Just like you, I need and want to feel seen, heard, and valued. And now I want you to visualize all of these people who you just thought of. At the same time, if you can see them in your mind, just like you all, I'm doing the very best I can in this crazy and wonderful thing called life. So that was me changing up an activity on the fly. I'm going to share my screen again. And hopefully that was somewhat effective. And then I just want to finish with, dear self, today and for the rest of my days, I choose to love you, to cherish you, and to accept you just the way you are. And say thank you. And I will stop sharing, and now I can answer any questions. Should I just go straight to the Q&A? There we go. Are there options for 20-second hugs when you're alone? It's a great question, and I don't think so. I think this is one of those things where you actually do have to find someone who can hold you. I mean, maybe some people, I don't find it very effective for me to hug myself, but you could try it and let me know. How would you apply this to people living with dementia in a care setting? I don't know what this is. Is that the 20-second hug, or is that, so I'm sorry, if there's a possibility of someone adding into defining or clarifying what this is, then I can answer that. Any suggestions those living with dementia in care settings and how we can bring this benefit to physical touch? I would try it. I would just absolutely think that that 20-second hug for someone with dementia would be just equally as important for them or individuals without dementia. Apps to help, I think I've already talked about that. Calm, Headspace is another, Insight Timer is another app. Yeah. Oh, I'm so glad that my explanation of meditation was helpful. There's wonderful, yes, yep. Thank you for typing those in. Are there any other questions that, I guess we have just 1 minute? My apologies for running a bit over.
No, that was great. Thank you very much, Dr. Caspar. I must have to agree with that last person who, excuse me, had said, thank you for explaining the act of meditation so well. I think you had a very, really good explanation just for people to be able to know where to start, because sometimes that's almost even a bit daunting. And as you said, really kind of in nowadays, try and really help turn our minds off, or just give our minds a break even.
Yes, absolutely. It is so important and powerful, and a 5 a day can have incredibly positive outcomes for you, and also help you with that ability to make a decision and a choice about where your mind is going to go. I know for me, that's one of the most important things I've been able to do to help me in managing my own stress response. So,
yeah. Absolutely. Well, I don't see that other person having respond to this.
Okay.
So if they're still listening, if they want to reach out after and can maybe clarify a little more, please
Absolutely.
feel free.
It may have been the 20-second hug. So definitely, I would think that would make, it doesn't make any sense why that wouldn't be just as effective for someone with dementia as someone without dementia. In fact, given all of the understandable stress responses that someone who has dementia may be experiencing, I would think that this would be incredibly important, and that you'll know and you'll feel again when they have that relaxation response to you.
Yeah, absolutely. So I don't see any other comments or questions for you at this time. You did say, are you okay if I make your slide deck into a PDF format and share it?
Absolutely. Please
Okay.
do. If it can be helpful or useful in any way beyond this presentation, I think that's a wonderful thing.
Okay, well, thank you so much. And thank you so much again for your time this afternoon. We always really appreciate when presenters take time out of their day and their busy schedule and lives to present for us. So thank you once again. And thank you to the healthcare professionals, like I said, who had come out to join us today.
Absolutely. You guys are amazing. Thank you. Thank you for all that you do. Really, truly, from the bottom of my heart, thank you.
Great. And thanks so much, and have a good afternoon, everyone.
Thank you. Bye now.